Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. It is my privilege to welcome you to the second day of Shaking Conference, sharing footnotes of subaltern knowledge and practice. My name is Jasmina Čubrilo, and I'm full professor from University of Belgrade, Faculty of Philosophy, Department of Art History. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this first session today as Artist Talk with Tanja, conceived as Artist Talk with Tanja Ostojić here present. As some of you already know, Tanja Ostojić is visual performance and interdisciplinary, or even I would say transdisciplinary artist, researcher, and educator based in Berlin. She is internationally recognized for her institutional gender critique and socially and politically engaged feminist art in public spaces, particularly those dealing with challenges of displacement, migration, and gender issues. Her performances and exhibition artworks during the last almost three decades have taken her to numerous important art venues and festivals, as well as art museums worldwide, such as the Manifesto Biennale, the Venice Biennale, Tirana Biennale, Brooklyn Museum in New York, and the Busan Biennale in South Korea, to mention a few. Besides, various art collections have enlisted her video performances and performance documentation. Born and raised in socialist Yugoslavia, Ostojić studied sculpture at University of Arts in Belgrade at Faculty of Fine Arts during the 90s in the context of disintegration that would, with the whole spectrum of its consequences, become the important content of her performances and projects, such as Personal Space from 1996 and 1998, Looking for Husband with EU Passport from 2005, or Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić from 2011 and 2017. Very early in her career, soon after finishing her bachelor's and master's studies in Belgrade, she rejected the concept of art as an aesthetic practice and the idea of art as a production of an aesthetic object, sculpture, and fully embraced, without any hesitation or regrets, I would say, the concept of art as a social practice, or art as a production of social relations, close to Joseph Beuys's idea of social sculpture on the one hand, and on the other to the concepts of community-based art and collective artistic practices, concepts derived from relational aesthetics theoretical framework. From that point, since 1995, 1996, and the first Tanja's actions and performances, her art practice has taken two directions. First one, in the domain of institutional critique of the local and global art world, the later from the geopolitical and gender margins, as in the project's Strategies of Success Curators series. From 2001 to 2003, there were 5 performances with Harold Zeman during the Venice Biennale, with Bartolomeo Pietromarchi and art critic Ludovico Pretesi in Rome, performance Be My Guest, Sofa for Curator performance with Stevan Vukovic, theorist and curator from Belgrade, Vacation with curator with Edi Muka, curator of the second Tirana Biennale, and performance with Marina Gržinić, Politics of Queer Curatorial Positions. The second trajectory of Tanja's art practice refers to the broad range of contemporary social issues, produced all kinds of global inequalities between the global north and global south, divisions according to class, ethnical, racial, gender, sexual, or cultural identities, and linguistic barriers by limited accessibility, exclusion, vulnerability. For example, Integration Project 2002 to 2008, Sans Papier, Misplaced Women, the project we are going to see film tomorrow at what, 7 p.m. or 6:30? 16:30. Okay. So Tanja's artistic practice has been studied in numerous scholarly papers and books, as well as being included in various anthologies of feminist, contemporary, and or performance art. Furthermore, Ostojić has also published a number of books and essays on topics of social engaged art and its participatory and collaborative methodologies. As a part of her artistic activist and theoretical engagement, she's giving talks, lectures, seminars, and workshops, and presenting her work at academic conferences and art universities around Europe and in two Americas. And today in Belgrade, she's going to talk on methodologies of empowering feminist artistic practices, alternative pedagogical formats developed in the framework of two projects. One is Misplaced Women, and the other Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić. So I will give microphone to Tanja. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmina, very much for this very generous introduction, and thank you everyone for coming. And I feel very privileged, even there is my poster framed in front of the door. Thank you for having me here, and I would have to move to the speaker's corner. And I will try to focus on the topic of today, methodologies of empowering feminist artistic practices and alternative pedagogical formats, developed in the framework of two of my projects, Misplaced Woman, between 2009 and still today, and Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić, that also was running over a period of approximately 8 years. I intend to share with you some of the methodologies that might be useful, because I hear that some of you are working as a pedagogist, but also to explain what kind of approach I'm having when I work with people. Misplaced Woman workshops, this is the project. Apply the principles of art as social practice and explore a variety of public spaces and the possibilities for temporary interventions in them, empowering participants via a kind of a masterclass block seminar, a laboratory outside of the official educational institution, and I will say in more details later about how I do those workshops. So to say, while developing new collective and individual works, performances and performance scores, but also activist actions and activist performances. On the other side, Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić develops further the strategies of conscious ethical politics in artistic production, the creation of a community with shared authorship and ownership, and the emancipatory potential of collective autobiographical methodologies as the basis for art making. So what is common for those both projects? They are both long-term projects, means that I engage with people over a pretty much extended period of time. They are not like a one-off little workshops. They are personal. There is a personal relationship with each of the project participants. There is a community building as one of the core goals in this project. There is a peer learning between the participants. There is peer sharing, peer shaping of each of the workshops, and there is a support for each other. There is a learning process about the issues, and we embark all together into a creative process. So this is not happening on a theoretical level. This is not happening on a paper. We are really embarking a creative process and often producing individual and group artworks with, in some cases, shared authorship, in some cases, delegated authorship. We practice women's circle, and I'm involving in those projects most often people being completely outside of the institutional context, so academic context, and outside of the artistic context. In many cases, their processing of healing happening inside of those workshops. This is the picture of the Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić project. I would like to bring to your attention each of the publications that you can look at here or also access online on my academia page. In the frame of the Lexicon of Tanjas Ostojić, that is a very complex project that I started in the framework of my interdisciplinary research fellowship at the University of Arts Berlin. In the first part of the project, it was a kind of sociological research, and to conduct the sociological research within a peer group, basically a number of women, at least 33 women who all have the same first name and same family name as myself, Tanja Ostojić. And they're all born in the former Yugoslavia, or their parents were born there. So the first step of the project was to create a questionnaire for Tanja Ostojić, and everyone answered to this questionnaire who decided to take part in the project. And each Tanja also had a question for another Tanja, for the other named sister that they wanted to ask. And over the period of a couple of years, I had an opportunity to one-to-one encounters with them, was brought to their favorite place, or they were visiting me in Berlin because we were organizing some talk shows with named sisters. Each Tanja, I said, proposed also some question for other Tanja. And then, especially Tanja Ostojić, who is mathematics teacher in Lörrach, at the corner of Germany, France, and Switzerland, was very active in helping me creating this questionnaire. I created also the ethical code, because this is a research between fellow human beings. So they knew that there is nothing will be published without their knowledge or consent. Participants have the right to take back certain information or censor parts that they do not wish to be accessible to the public. Participants can and will get all materials produced in the project's framework for their own use. In the case of public events, participants could additionally decide whether they are willing to take part in it or not, or if they are willing to be filmed or not. That being said, all the interviews that have been published, because there are some that were not, have been authorized, and authorized after a period of several years, when women also had a different view on their lives or particular issues. And the issues in this project are the issues of migration, the issues of labor, work conditions, domestic labor, access to education, and the project has been intergenerational. one of the oldest, Tanjas Ostojić, was born in 1950s, and one of the youngest was quite young when we met first time in the company of her mother. But when she joined us later in the project, she was already a basketball player. Through a forms of interpersonal sociological research, I created a map that documents the way in which over 33 named sisters, the project participants, including myself, migrated as refugees for the reason of war and post-war resettlement in post-Yugoslav geographies, for education, marriage, or economic reasons. One of the important threads of the project is the labor conditions of the named sisters, including women who are proud of their work, even when they have experienced being unemployed, underpaid, and or exploited. Here you can see the individual maps. So one of the questions in the questionnaire was to draw their own migration map. And then this is, for instance, my own. This is Tanja Ostojić that was moving very often between Bosnia and Serbia. And here you can see some of the places where most of the named sisters were based or migrated. On the base of those individual drawings, I created a large drawing that is bigger than this projection here. That is a kind of psychogeographical map where only the territories where Tanjas Ostojić lived are marked, and or they used to live or without national borders. In the frame of the workshops, so in the frame of the project, the aim was to provide, between other things, artistic education. So many of Tanjas Ostojić who took part in the project, for instance, they never entered the Museum of Contemporary Art in their homeland. But as we collaborated with a number of contemporary art museums in the region, Rijeka, Zagreb, Belgrade, Banja Luka, or workshops like Terra in Kikinda, Goethe Institute in Belgrade, and so on, we organized always a guided tour, either by the artist whose exhibition was on or the curator on duty. And then for named sisters was very important to hear from the producers themselves, artists or curators, about the artwork. And in the same time, they were embarking workshops. One of the workshops was organized in different places. Here we see the pictures from the Goethe Institute in Belgrade, but was a long-term documentary embroidery workshop that I was leading together with my dear colleague Vahida Ramojkić. And we created at the end a large patchwork tapestry. Key questions of each of the person involved's lives was embroidered here. Yes, there was a color code. Each color had its meaning, for the topics that I already mentioned, like work, legislation, women issues, love, and so on. We also traveled together to many locations, so no book launch after the book was published happened without Tanjas Ostojić. In Novi Sad, Belgrade, Berlin, London, everywhere. At least one person made it. If it was very difficult to get visa or funding, at least another one person joined me. So, but the highlight of the whole project, and as I do ask people in all my workshops to write, they wrote also in their own capacity, about their experience with the project. We had almost our spokesperson, that was Tanja Ostojić, who you see here. She's a journalist by profession, so she was very much keen on speaking in front of the group. they organized. So after the guided tour at the exhibition opening in the salon of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Belgrade that I guided with the exhibition curator Zoran Eric, when I left Belgrade, they organized themselves. Tanja from Belgrade and Tanja from Subotica got together, and they brought their crowd and they showed them around, and they spoke about each other's work, and they wrote really incredible things about how empowering this was for them and the whole process of becoming artists themselves. What could be still very important? Yeah, there was also, as in all the workshops I'm doing, there is within a group, there is a creation of the interest groups, or in our case, they were like a Zimmerke, like the girls that are, the women that are sharing the rooms. So I would usually match them because I had to do the whole accommodation booking, which two are staying together, and they really indeed match really well. I'm sorry I don't have the slides, but take a look at the interviews in the book, and also at the cooking book that is a part of this publication. I tried then also I made a series of double portraits. And in these double portraits, you could see that it's either me and another Tanja Ostojić, that we always had a matching color shirts, even we didn't plan anything. Or I found also Tanjas who met for the first time, for instance, both born the same year in Banja Luka and both being refugees. It was very interesting, for example, those two. One was married into Ostojić and one was born Ostojić. So we had many different perspectives on this identity. And of course, I could not cast Tanjas Ostojić. This is a methodology of chance. Whoever fits to this and wants to take part in the project. Now I am moving on to the next project, and this is Misplaced Woman. This is a project that includes over 200 people in various workshops across the globe. And the participants of the workshop embody and enact some of everyday life's activities that thematize displacement, known to migrants, refugees, and itinerant artists traveling the world to earn their living. Of course, we thematize and make difference between the privilege and for instance, working mobility and forced migration. While some of the performances will deal with migration issues, the others are involved with the feminist issues, queerness, gentrification, inclusion, accessibility, power relations, and vulnerability, particularly as they relate to women and non-binary people, as aspects that figured prominently in the past almost 3 decades of my artistic practice. While investigating privilege by distinguishing between working mobility, forced or desired migration, and how arbitrary laws may apply on migrants, Misplaced Woman also explores diverse public spaces and the invisibility of certain groups within them. As I said, I already have conducted numerous workshops across the world. Here we could see just some of the places like Aberdeen, Aix-en-Provence, Basel, Belgrade, Bergen, Berlin, Calgary, Cologne, Gaborone, Ghent, Göteborg, Graz, Innsbruck, Istanbul, London, Marseille, New York, Pula, Skopje, Split, Tel Aviv, Toronto, Vienna, Vilnius, Wuhan, Zagreb, and Zurich. This is one of the basic performance scores because Some of the workshops are very short term, and some of the people are very inclined to overtake certain proposals. So the score, unpacking a bag of your own, is described in very simple steps. Also, I have a number of contributions where people download those scores from internet, perform them in their context, and then they send the feedback to the project to share it on the project blog. Here you can copy the blog or just Google it, Misplaced Woman WordPress.com. I will explain. So there are individual performances, there are group performances, and there are performance workshops. They are happening in some cases on a very specific locations. For instance, this one is at the staircase of the Gare de Aix-en-Provence, Gare de Saint-Charles, that is a historically very significant place for the escaping routes for migrants in the time of the fascist occupation of France. But some people also contact me interested by this project and ask me to organize a workshop for them. For instance, Luciana Damiani from Montevideo, who experienced difficult migration circumstances when she lived in Spain, came to Berlin and we produced her work. So you could see a score 1, unpacking a bag of your own, here happening on the floor in the Nordbahnhof Park. The second score is holding the misplaced woman sign, or what one calls, in this case, misplaced human sign. And the score 3, or score number 10, this is the safe circle. You can see that she has drawn the safe circle, and this is the space where she was sharing. And between others, she shared this point. I'm a body and I'm statement. I'm witness and I'm evidence of manipulation. I don't want to ask permission to be. I don't have to ask permission to be. I don't want to be defined by you or anybody or anywhere or anything. I don't want to be from here or there. My existence, if my existence threatens you, that's because you are afraid to lose your privileges. If your walls will surround me, my words will be my weapon to make them fall. If you hurt me, I will heal. And I will repeat this all over again. Because I have a pact with all of my kind. Because that's my duty and only way to resist. I have to try to, for instance, say something about the steps that each of the workshop has. So steps of the workshop are the following. Get together, usually sitting on a circle and saying who we are and what is the motivation to embark this journey, to embark this project. Step number 2 is gathering topics. In the case of Tanja Ostojić, those topics derive from the interviews, for instance, and in the case of the misplaced woman, they derive from various exercises that we do in this process of getting together. And as a facilitator, one has to be very open-hearted and humble to open for all kinds of topics and also later suggestions for different performances. Number 3, we are working in a public space. And we create a safe circle to share, first in the space where we, what is our base, where we meet and have our tea corner and share food and thoughts, but we are going then into the public space. And in this public space, we are also creating safe space for the ones that are stepping out. So the step number 3 is looking at the city, for instance, city map, and then either departing on a derived walk in which we explore the city and do in this explorative process different kind of interventions, or we pre-decide, for instance, when we work in a bigger city or we have a very specific project in advance, we sit together and discuss which city neighborhood would host the best certain topics, or to what kind of neighborhood we want to talk, to address. For instance, here in Innsbruck, Li Fu, who was one of the people who responded to my open call to take part in the workshop, and whose 2 performances I produced in the framework of getting a prize of Art in Public Space Tirol. She wanted to address bullying, gender-based bullying, and we went to the building of university. And then she wanted to address in another piece tracking, so how much we attract and our identity online. And she made a magnificent performance on one of the main squares where the skateboarders were jumping around. And when she finishes each of her performances, then she asks for audience together, and then she discusses with them, okay, what can you say about me if you see all this, what is in my bag, the basic score, I'm packing a bag of your own, and so on. So in Istanbul, you will have a chance tomorrow to look at the documentary from the workshop there. The participants decided in which city neighborhood they would like to address people. And we went, because it's such a huge city, each day to another neighborhood, and then tried out our scores there. Number 4, joint meals, creating safe circle, coffee circles, is to bind the group and to form those affinity groups. Number 5, supporting each other in the realization of their ideas. Being engaged with documentation in case we don't have an external documentation team, and inspiring each other. Through such processes, the collectives are forming, or long-term relationship, because it is not uncommon that people who got to know each other for the first time in those workshops continue their collaboration in the future. Number 6, so then comes the realization, going to the city and doing our actions and performances. The next step is sitting together on a regular basis and reflecting upon what happened to us, what was going on, what could be done better, what we would like to repeat, what we would like to change, and so on. So it's a constant process. Then after the workshop is over, there is a writing task. A writing task, as I say, always everyone in their own capacity, a few lines, a poem, even more often than a text. Some people write theoretical essays, some write workshop reviews. It's very important because in this way people can reflect in a more profound way They leave some trace, and they also prepare for the next step, and this is a public talk. The public talk is a part of the workshop, and that's where we give a feedback to each other and present our processes for many people for the first time in public. So it's in the same time internal process, but also happening basically in the public. Then comes the process of editing and publishing of some of the visual and written materials on the project blog or in some of the project publications. And then keeping in touch. And then there are exhibitions organized. The artists, participants from all the places are invited to join the exhibitions of the project archive, and international community gatherings where, for instance, participants from different cities, workshops, or some of the participants get together. Many of the project participants keep contributing to the project over years and keep being active in this group. How am we time?
Very good.
Okay.
This
This is, for instance, from Berlin workshop, just to explain how big specter is of the people I work with. For instance, Rea Ramjong, she's a writer. She is a person with a very complex background and heritage. She's a person who has a lot to say, and she's good in saying that, but she never done performance before. And this was a very interesting combination in which at the Temple of Afeld, in front of the building where the refuges were basically closed in the -15 in Berlin winter, at the workshop that was organized by the Kunsthochschule Berlin-Weißensee, I often make an open call, and the students of the university are part of the group, and we have also external people. This is a quite beautiful combination. I really enjoy having diverse people in every sense. So Rea was performing the Unpacking a Bag of Your Own as a base for her performances. She brought a bag with with the colonial goods, so things, everything to relate to her different countries of origin, and was taking out those objects and then offering to exchange an object so she told the story about each of the objects and then offered to exchange, to give you an object in exchange of your migration story or some other fitting story. And that was quite beautiful. For instance, Susie von Zellendorf is an artist with special needs with whom I worked individually at the course of 2 years, and developed 2 different performances in public spaces of Berlin. Dagmara Bilon is one of the project participants, really engaged since the London workshop in 2016, and she's a performance artist who had a very interesting migration story, but she never dealt with her migration story in her art before. She created a number of performances, and out of these performances, I asked her to create a score, becoming one of the back. So she performed Refugees Week together with Teresa, very amazing, very engaged artists and activists, I have to say. And then now we get to the Istanbul, where I would like to show an example of how it went with different scores. What is the power of the group, basically, and the power of the group also working on a long term and getting together again. So with the first workshop that took place in September 21 at Perform Istanbul, that that was lasting for about 5 days. One of the performance score was walking backwards entire Istiklal Street. Another score was to wave the scarf. So we were literally walking entire Istiklal, not entire, as long as the police didn't kick us out, walking backwards and waving. So one person starting waving her scarf. I noticed, and then I said to the other, wave what you have. Some were waving shirts, some were waving tablecloths, and this became incredible event. And in Istanbul, in public space, I see there are some people from Istanbul here, you know, it's forbidden like a single person performing, standing, it's forbidden because of the a lot of repression basically, and after Gezi protests. So I wrote here something. Impact of the project lies in connecting with people, activists and institutions, rather than into creating a kind of artistic product, you know, for a venue. And also it says, I worked, last year we had a huge exhibition at the Depot in Istanbul that is extremely socially and politically engaged venue, outstanding in the entire region, really a right place to find the right community and to show this project. So in front of the banner that protests, in front of the Women Attorney building in the Istiklal, stating a protest, disagreement basically with Turkey stepping out of the Istanbul Convention, that is a convention to protect women and queer people, so against domestic violence. We made a little speech and talk about this, and then we were kicked out by police. But 1 year later, and in another district of Istanbul, I don't have a picture here, but you will see in the video tomorrow, in Kadıköy, we were doing a score opening of one's voice. In Kadıköy, we were not allowed to perform any piece, and we had the 2 policemen in civilian discussing every single score we wanted to perform. And our producer, co-producer from the Perform Istanbul, they were extremely good in negotiating with police. So finally we were allowed to perform, not allowed to open the bags, not allowed to hold the signs, but we were allowed to open the voice. And opening of the voice, not by standing, but while moving. And we were doing that through tiny streets full of cafes. Please, could you put the microphone? And then the opening voice is basically screaming. And if you have a group of 10 women screaming simultaneously or one after another, this was really alarming. And many people came out, old men kicking with a stick into something, everyone asking what's going on. And next year, when we met, in 1 year later, exactly in September 22, we combined those 2 performances, walking backwards, carrying the scarves, but this time we binded all the scarves together. This was a brilliant idea of Arzu Yayıntaş, who is a feminist activist, binding the scarves together and walking backwards and screaming. So these 3 scores together. It was in September when Masha Amini was killed. So we performed the kind of action of solidarity for her and for the feminist revolution in Iran. I hope you got my point. It's sometimes long the way I explain, but this is this power of the group. Many of the participants stated, you will have a chance to hear about that in the documentary, because in documentary everybody says about their own experience, stated such a power they only experienced on the 8th of March. In Istanbul, 8th of March is a big event. So, I don't know if we can hear the video. So, despite of a fact that in 21 we had the permission to work in the public, actually to film in the public space. My camera woman, she had a permission to film, but in last year we didn't have a crew with us, no organizers, no camera crew, no permission. So we were doing everything guerrilla way, and we decided to go into underground because it was raining, but it was also like the way to not have troubles with police. I have to say, this workshop, the workshop in 21, we had a large number of participants who were coming from the queer scene. This year, we had in 22 also some queer, some trans people also coming from Germany, not only from Istanbul. And there was this very sad events happening in Iran. So those two events were basically coloring the 22 interventions. And there we exploited the underground and driving up and down one of the underlying lines. And at the points when it was empty, we could do very different things. And when it got more crowded, it changed. For instance, here you have the unpacking a bag of your own score. Here you have Dagmara Bilun again performing the becoming one of the with the bag. This is the score of Honey from Berlin underground, but we performed it also there, mirroring cis men spreading, who sit in the public transport with the spread legs. In Berlin, people had the giant mirrors, but there we had like a small mirrors. Then there were actions with masks. Many different masks. Many different. These were the queer mask workshop that took part in during the closed part of our workshop, not open to the public in Depot. Then some of those masks were taken for the public transport. For instance, this was my intervention. I went quite apart from the group because I thought if people see so much happening, they will have a different attitude. And just opening an umbrella, very easy score. And immediately, you know, I was approached here by Russian guest workers. No, not Russian, Tajiki guest workers, but talking in Russian to me and asking, well, is it because of this? Is it because of that? And then people were naming really all those political troubles. They read it as a sign of there is something wrong and so on. And the dialogues were extremely interesting, and many people asked, can I take a picture of you, and so on. This is just a little part of the last year's Istanbul group, when many already left. I love our group's pictures. I didn't find the best one. This was about that. I only want to announce, please, tomorrow at 16:30. Here at the conference, it will be a Belgrade premiere, but the work was shown already 3 times in Istanbul at the Beykoz Kundura Cinema, at Depot, and at a summer festival in Tarabya. A documentary of this workshop, and there you can look at yourself, you know, and see how it goes. And yes, I hope you enjoy it, and the quality of the screening is fair enough. Yeah. Thank you very much for your attention.